In this week's episode, we talk about connecting to others in a deep, authentic way, rather than superficially. We talk about developing self-awareness and emotional intelligence, which helps us to identify our emotions and to understand what drives our behaviour. And we look at creating space for ourselves to do the work.
Welcome to Man Quest Define Meaning, where we help men navigate modern life, find their true purpose, and redefine manhood. I'm your host, James, and each week, inspiring guests share their journeys of overcoming fear, embracing vulnerability, and finding success. From experts to everyday heroes, get practical advice and powerful insights. Struggling with career, relationships, or personal growth? We've got you covered. Join us on Man Quest Define Meaning. Now, let's dive in.
Good morning. My name is James. I'm the host of Man, A Quest Define Meaning. And today I have a very special guest, Jote Prakash. Is that right? Is that pronounced right?
That was spot on, bro. That was spot on.
That's spot on. So just before went live, I've had a little bit of practice with his name. Can you start off by telling us your journey?
Yeah, so as James said, I'm Jote Prakash. I wasn't always Jote Prakash. That's actually a name that I took on when I was 18. And it was part of my sort of claiming of a new identity at that time. To give a little bit more backstory, my mum actually started Kundalini yoga when I was 10 years old. And so this name, the spiritual name, is through Kundalini yoga. So I guess that's been a big influential part of my journey, is actually my mum and how she started her spiritual journey, which happened, like I say, when I was about 10. And she started Gestalt psychotherapy, she started Kundalini yoga, she started wearing a turban, and she divorced my dad. She took us out of school. So me and my three brothers were home educated from that point on. And everybody thought she was gone batshit crazy, but she was really just carving out a new life for herself. She recognized that the way she was living before that wasn't serving her, wasn't actually in connection with her soul or her higher self. So she really forged this new path. And that meant that I was then in that energy with her. We were getting like organic food all of a sudden. We were taken out of school. I remember that moment actually in the car driving back from school when mum said, how would you guys feel about like not doing school anymore and coming in and doing work at home? I remember just going like crazy. I was like so excited. I ran around school the next day. I told all my friends like, screw you. We get to stay at home and we never have to go to school again. It was this just like, yeah, like my reality shattered in that moment. And that led to me essentially being able to think for myself and think outside of the box. And I think mum was really laying the groundwork for me to then step into this new way of being, new way of living. I fought against it for long enough time. For the next few years of my teenage years, I had an idea that what mum was doing was her thing, and she was a little bit wacky, a little bit of a hippie, a little bit weird. And that wasn't really the path for me. I was like set on, I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to go into drama school and do acting. But basically, when I was actually at college, I did a performing arts BTEC, I had an experience that changed everything. So basically what happened was I was smoking quite a bit of marijuana at the time with friends and things. And I think I just my mind started to expand more and more. And there was a time where I kind of upped my intake of marijuana. And so I was like sort of chain smoking a little bit more over the course of a few days. And then I actually did it for the first time in a public place. So I did it at college. And that like led to me having this wild kind of awakening. So as I was walking back into college, I just had this experience of my mind exploding into this like complete state of awareness, and everything was amplified. So smells, all of my senses kind of exploded. Smells, tastes. I could see everything. I could see colors that weren't there before. I also could really like almost see people's auras. I remember walking back into college and like seeing all this gray energy, people just like trudging into college, this like bored out of their mind, or just, I could really feel that something was needed to shift and something was needed in me to shift. And all of a sudden, like just all at once. So what I now know to be kind of, I might call a spontaneous Kundalini awakening, actually. Like I had this experience. And at that moment, like all fear and anxiety drained out of my body. It was like, whew, there was just no fear, no anxiety in me. I was like, all I wanted to do was bring joy to the world and bring light and creativity. And that led to me like taking my guitar into college and playing music in the corridors and singing. And like, I used to be so scared of singing. And all of a sudden I was like in the canteen, like singing in front of everybody, and everybody would, and there was like a mix. Some people were loving it. Some people were like, this guy is crazy. But that kind of escalated into this, like my energy got higher and higher and higher over the course of about 2 weeks, I'd say. And I basically stopped like sleeping and eating at the same time. So I was kind of like, I lost all like the grounded, practical things that were keeping my feet on the earth. They sort of fell away in favor of this, like, let's just follow this flow of life and love and creativity. And I don't want to go to sleep. There's too much to experience in this life for sleep. So I essentially went into this like cascade of different experiences, one leading to another. And I was like surfing in Scarborough one moment, and then I was like longboarding. I was doing these like sports, and I was just, the adrenaline was like pumping through my system. So I was on this like up and up and up until basically after about 2 weeks, my nervous system started to like crack a little bit. And what used to be a good experience suddenly became like this paranoia started to set in. So at first I was quite happy to not be sleeping. And then all of a sudden I realized I'd go to bed, I'd lay down. And then I realized I actually couldn't sleep and had this experience of falling through space. And then that started to lead into this like quite intense state of paranoia, of genuinely believing that there was something wrong with my brain. And I was like Googling stuff, like crazy stuff. I really don't recommend it. If anyone has an experience like this of like rapid awakening, don't Google the symptoms. Because I was like Googling, can you give yourself a brain hemorrhage? And it was like, yeah, you can give yourself a brain hemorrhage if you like overthink things. And so I was like terrified that I was giving myself a brain hemorrhage. And even one day, like spat blood into this sink at my mum's house and was convinced it was happening. But maybe I just bit my lip or my tongue or whatever, because I wasn't aware of things at this point. I was sort of losing my mind. And I spat blood into the sink, and I was like, oh my God, I'm actually dying. I'm literally going to die. And yeah, that led to quite an intense, what I would now call a psychosis, an experience of psychosis. And mum took me into hospital. They didn't know what to do. They were like about to get a mental health practitioner or a psychiatric person to come and see me. And this was also a moment that potentially like the fate of my whole life was hanging in the balance. And I remember it clearly. Like I remember everything throughout this experience, this awakening. It's like it was, people say, I bet you can't remember a thing because you were just out of your mind. But I was like, no, I'm actually like, it's high definition. It's the most clear memory of my entire life these few weeks. So I'm in the hospital and they're like doing all these physical checks on me and nothing's physically wrong. So they go and like call for psychiatric consultant to come and see me. And as the consultant was on his way to assess me, probably to come and say that I need to go into a psychiatric ward, that was probably what was going to happen. I was like in that much of a head fuck. I reckon that I probably would have been sectioned, or they would have given me something like some drugs or something. And as this consultant was coming to assess me, he got sidetracked on another more important job. And at that point, my mum looked at me and said, do you know what? I think we can do this ourselves. I don't think we need the medical system. I think we can get through this ourselves. So she took my hand and took me out of the hospital. And what followed next was actually about a week in Scotland with the family, basically just mum like doing all these things for me to bring me back down to earth. So I'd be going out for walks in my bare feet. She actually tied a turban on my head because the turban is said to contain the crown energy. So in yogic philosophy, I guess what was happening to me with my crown chakra was like expanding a lot and opening, and my lower chakras weren't grounded enough, and my nervous system wasn't strong enough to actually hold this energy and contain it without exploding. So she was like offering me stuff like ginger juice and carrots and just really like root vegetables. And I was on a bit of a protocol of recovery and various different things like yoga and stuff that she had me doing. So that was a really powerful experience to then really be held by my mum through this process. She brought me back down to earth. And there was a moment throughout that week where I was like, wow, I can kind of feel my body again. I remember actually like bursting into in the back of a car on the way to some castle in Scotland, just bursting into tears and being like, I feel like I actually exclaimed to the rest of my auntie and my uncle and my cousins that we were driving with, I feel like I'm me again. I feel like I'm actually like coming back to reality. And my auntie burst into tears, and it was a big thing for the whole family, and everybody was really affected by what was happening with me. And so that kind of cracked me open to come back to your question, that my journey and how I got to where I am today. That really cracked me open into this new way of seeing the world and myself. And I was nervous of anything like spiritual. Kundalini yoga has been a big part of my journey. And Kundalini yoga was also like something that I actually did during the experience of the psychosis that kind of amplified the state. And so I was wary of Kundalini yoga after that, but I found my way back into it in a gentle way. And yeah, and Kundalini yoga actually became something that really helped me understand my experience. So I was actually gifted a free place on a Kundalini yoga teacher training that we were running at a holistic center. And my mum and my auntie were running a holistic center at the time. I was 17 years old, just come out of college, didn't get into the drama school, and was gifted this place. And I was like, do you know what? At first I was, teenager rebellion, like, no way am I fucking doing that. That's the strange, that's just weird. I'm not going to follow that and follow my mum into that. But I just was thinking, why not? I just remember thinking, why not? I might as well do this training, see where it takes me. I'm not planning on really doing anything with it, but over the course of the training, it was a year-long training, and it just unraveled a lot inside me. And I ended up joining my mum, my auntie, and helping out with the holistic center. Started doing men's retreats at the same time. And really because I needed a group of friends on the same level as me. I actually, like, over the course of the training, quit like alcohol, marijuana, stopped eating meat, stopped eating sugar, cut out so much of these things that weren't really serving me. And I was like actually in this space of quite like lonely, because I really started to just not resonate with my friends in the same way anymore. They'd be out clubbing, and I tried to go clubbing at first, and I could get into it. I'd do like breath work in the toilets to get me like a bit hyped, and I could enjoy it. But after a while, I was like, it's actually not really very fun. I just find it boring. Like, we're dancing to this same kind of music for hours and hours. And I was like, I just really was craving something else. So that led me to setting up men's retreats. I had no idea really what I was doing. I taught some yoga and meditation, and we do like projects, like building a tree house, just have a lot of fun together, and just started to evolve into where it is now, like with these retreats and the work I'm doing with sacred space and holding sacred space, and the men's work of really deepening into powerful somatic rituals and sharing circles. So I know that I've talked for ages now, but that's a little bit about my journey. So thank you so much for the question.
Literally so much in probably 10 minutes of your journey. But I want to quickly just go back to when the first 10 years of your life, when you were in school, how did that impact? Did that have an impact on you for the next 10, 15 years?
Yeah. So the home education.
Yeah, for the first 10 years, quite often people say that the first 7 years of your life impacts you on the biggest level with your beliefs and how you act as a person. How did the first 10 years of your life impact later on?
Yeah, like being in school, coming out, I can definitely feel the unraveling that to take place. And it's like quite amazing to catch it, I suppose, at 10, the conditioning that goes in but in the system, in the school system is strong. It's like, I was grateful. I actually like enjoyed school for the most part. I was like, had good friends and I was quite clever. And so I think it served me like at that time to actually be in school in a way. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's one memory that comes up actually now that was a defining moment in my life, was being very young and having these sort of magical abilities, if you like. So, for example, I'd be able to play the game Pairs, where you're flipping over different cards and trying to find a pair. I'd be able to play this game and kind of see through the back of the cards and get the whole game just like one after another without anyone else having a go. And people were like, whoa. And I did it multiple times. And I had this, what might call hypersensitivity and ability to just, like magical ability maybe. And I remember this moment being in the kitchen at my mum's and one of her friends saying something along the lines of, she saw me do the pads, she saw me do this thing. It was a bit of a party trick by this point. And she said something like, oh, that's a bit strange that he can do that. That's a bit weird. And I think at that point, I realized that level of openness is not really normal. It's not what people are used to. That level of just seeing beyond the veil of normal reality is like a bit weird or a bit strange. And that was injected into me in that moment, to the point where from that moment on, I actually couldn't do this. I lost the ability. So there was probably quite a few moments over the course of those early years where if we step outside of the box of what everybody else is deeming as normal reality, almost like people want to then bring you back into that framework of the way that they see the world, because it's maybe slightly threatening to be someone who sees the world in a completely different way. And so I could see how I was getting dragged into certain boxes and certain ways of thinking and being over those former years, that even just stuff like you need to get good grades. And that's a belief that gets ground into us. If you don't get good grades, you're not going to have a good life. You're not going to get a good job. You're not going to be able to support your family. And it gets injected in to us at school. But I remember an assembly one time, literally they were saying, if you don't get good grades, and they did this whole like graph, and they did it. If you don't get good grades, you won't get into college. You won't get into university. You won't be able to get a good job of this much per year and all this stuff. And they were like, we're super young at this point. And they're just like, it's almost this propaganda of, if you forget your pen, you won't be able to join the exam and then you won't get a good grade. And then, I think breaking out of that then allowed me the space. So coming out into home education allowed me then the space to actually expand into this creative self that I am, and I believe that we all are.
You can see it all the time. As kids, you're very expressive, creative, and you hit a certain age and people start saying you're weird by being able to express yourself and show your creativity. And even now, I get called weird, but I've changed what I used to see as weird, thinking stay away from weird. I tend to go towards it. I tend to almost embrace the word weird. Yes, I am weird. Who cares, kind of thing, and almost be myself unapologetically.
Yeah. I love that. And to go a little bit further along, when I was, I think 14 or 13, something around that age, like when I was actually like just hitting puberty and coming into my teenage years, I did actually decide to go back to school for a few years. And then I obviously I went to college. So I went back in end of year 9, and I did like year 10 and 11, and I did my GCSEs in school. So I got this chance to come out of school, break some of the conditioning, and then come back in with this new way of seeing. And this, how am I going to be my authentic self within this environment? So that was a whole experience in itself. And I thrived really. Like I did okay. I remember feeling like a bit of an outsider at times. And there was like bullying, and there was like people were judging me and things. And specifically when my mum would be around, or they'd see that my mum wears a turban and all this stuff. I remember getting called Sikh boy and all this stuff. And it's still claiming it, like you say, I actually am now a Sikh. So I used to get called Sikh boy when I was a teenager, but now I'm like, I can claim that, and then it doesn't affect anymore. It doesn't affect us.
That's it. It's like when you do start to claim these things, they no longer have the power. They no longer have that power against us, and it's weird now. Weird's almost my super strength, but it's at the same time, it's not like you get called weird and you're down. It's more like yes kind of thing. Yeah. You mentioned about psychosis and the period of time when you had paranoia. For those people who perhaps might be going through something like that, can you explain what psychosis is, and also how they could perhaps start to work through this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'd love to. It's something I'm so passionate about now. Actually, I really want to work more with people in some capacity with psychosis and moving and recovery from psychosis, because I think we're letting people down in the system. I think that just pumping people full of drugs. I've seen friends who have suffered from psychosis get sectioned, go into a ward, and just get pumped full of drugs to the point where they're just completely numbed out. So yes, they're able to function slightly better, but it's almost like what was opening up for them through the psychosis gets shut down, and it actually leads to this series of consequences and side effects from the drugs that then they have to deal with later down the line. And I would love to see us find a way in our society to hold people whose minds are cracking, because that's what psychosis is to me. It's like the mind is cracking. The way of seeing the world suddenly is wavy, and suddenly we're seeing things that weren't there before. That doesn't mean they're not real. That just means our reality is shaking a little bit. And that actually is the basis of all awakening. So this is why it's a fine line. It's like a tightrope walk between falling into complete psychosis, which is where the mind is kind of cracked open to the like point of real distress and suffering. And the other side of that, which is actually this like going into an awakening, which I was very blessed to be almost steered by my mother towards the like harnessing the energy that was rising up in me and harnessing that for my awakening to actually strengthen me and help me grow and crack open my heart and experience more love and more presence than I have ever experienced. It's almost like nowadays I'm spending time just trying to get myself back to that space I was in during the initial like 2 weeks of the up. It's like, I just want to get back there, but from a grounded place, like in a grounded way. So I talk a lot about grounded awakening. Yes. Just to give a definition on psychosis first, psychosis is where your reality is no longer what you thought it was. So this could be, people can then see like ghosts, or sometimes people have very visual things around psychosis of just like walls might start cracking, or you might be able to put your hand through a table, or just like really crazy stuff happens. And other times it's just like for me, a heightened sense of awareness, just like complete awareness and presence that is really heightened above and beyond a normal state. So when I'm feeling to like, how could people work with that if it's happening for them? If anybody's listening who is going through it themselves or is holding space for someone who's going through it, I think it's just about offering like really grounded energy. So my experience, the way I understand it now is my higher chakras were opening before my lower chakras had been developed. So chakra is like energy center in the body in yogic philosophy. And the higher chakras are all related to connection with spirit, connection with the soul, connection to our creative expression, connection to the heart and like unconditional love. And the lower chakras are all about security and sexuality and like power and courage and direction in life. So I think it's really just focusing on like the lower chakras. So kind of getting down into so if we go through it, like the root chakra, it's all about security. It's all about routine. It's all about stability. So my mum in my situation and when I got to Scotland, she was really offering me a lot of routine and stability. And I was getting up at the same time every day. I was having like hot baths. I was eating really well. So like a lot of grounded food and I was eating regularly. And then the second chakra is all about connection and relationships with others. That was a big thing for me throughout, was the way that other people like were relating with me. I remember a lot of people, even in their worry and their anxiety, because that's like relational contact, is I was seeing people around me who were quite worried about, and sometimes they'd be in tears, like, what's happening with you? And I was called Tom at the time. So what's happening with you, Tom? It's like, you're not who you were before. Like what, you're completely like out of your mind. What is going on? And that, I think that was kind of like pulling me back towards reality as well, even though I was like, oh, don't worry about me. I'm absolutely fine. I've never been better. And my mum really actually, sometimes she was angry. She was like, you need to snap out of this. You need to come back to reality. So having all these people around me that cared about me was really tethering me back into the earthly realm. And then I think the third chakra of the solar plexus and the power and just like feeling really solid in my direction and having this ability to, like it's more about action. The solar plexus, more about taking action and just taking these steps towards our dreams, but like a very practical way. So whereas my mind at that time was like, I can change the world. And I was a lot of in my head about it all. Like, I want to change the world. I want to make the world a better place. But because it wasn't connected to an actual like direction, it was just a bit of a pie in the sky idea. So like bringing it over the last few years, like bringing all that energy of, yes, I still want to change the world, but like I'm now more just about taking steady action towards that vision.
Yeah, that makes sense, because you can be all in your head and have this great, big, massive dream of yours, but unless you are grounded and taking small action steps, it's just a dream. And it will always be just a dream until you are able to really connect yourself back down to the earth and, as a human being, take them physical steps.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just one of those things, I think. For me, I've had this big dream of impacting the planet, but I've had to really ground into the base chakra, because for me, there's parts of me that feel unsafe. So it's working with safety and making my inner child feel safe in particular, and being able to then, once I've got a bit more grounded, okay, what action step can I take in this moment? So rather than thinking, but tomorrow or the next day, what can I do now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it's the big vision is sixth chakra, probably like third eye. And it's holding that big vision and then reining it in. I like what you say, that reining it into what's the tiny little step that I can take today, right now, in this moment.
Yeah, it's just a dream until you walk it in our physical body.
Yeah. Definitely.
There must be times in your life where things might not go to plan, or something crops up, or a challenge is created. How do you ground yourself to be able to overcome challenges, to overcome setbacks, struggles?
How do I ground myself? Yeah, my practice, my morning practice. I think morning routine is probably like the thing that grounds me more than anything else. It's waking up at a good time. And I really notice it if I don't. So I've had a few weeks. It's been a lot of challenges. Actually, I'm on this. We're living in a tiny house on some land, and we were planning on setting this project up on the land, and retreat center and organic food and the whole shebang. But we actually, like, the landowner has asked us to move on, basically. So long story short. And so now we're in this space of being thrown back into the unknown and having to, move on. And that has destabilized me, and it's thrown off my morning routine a little bit, which is normal. And I'm like, okay, I'm okay with that. I've got a bit of like flex now. I don't want to be too rigid about like, I must get up at this time and I must do these practices every day. Cause that becomes like, that becomes shackles. That becomes like another cage to put ourselves in, it's like, oh, well, now I'm spiritual. I'm now like shackling myself to the spiritual practices, and I'm addicted to the spiritual practices. So I allow that breathing space, but I have like just the last few days kind of locked back into my practices, and I'm getting up 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m., getting myself out, go to the gym, do a bit of yoga in the studio at the gym, and then start by doing meditation in the car. And then I get to the gym, do some yoga for maybe about an hour, and then have some like workout at the gym, then head back, do some work. And it's like, if I follow this real nice flow and routine to my day, then it supports everything else that I do, even like to the point of eating and like allowing myself time to digest. So I do my intermittent fasting, and that's really supported me to not eat. Like maybe have a bit of fruit in the morning, but like my main first meal is after 12 o'clock. So I've got this like structure and routine, and all that really, really supports me. And I eat really well. I've got a beautiful wife who is amazing with her food and nutrition, and especially when on a vegan diet, because like it can be easy, I think, for people who go vegan or start going plant-based, is not getting the right nutrients. So it doesn't work. And there's been times where I've been like, this is not working. I'm feeling like super exhausted all the time, or fatigued, or just not getting the energy I need. I'm like getting thinner. And so I'm like now on this quite, I don't want to say regimented, but quite sort of solid practice of what I eat and when I eat, and like the portion sizes, and big bowl of porridge with all these seeds and protein powder and hemp protein, and all these little things that keep me grounded and keep me tethered to the earth, as well as this, like what you said, James, like this vision that I'm holding for the like community project and living on the land and living in harmony with the earth and nature. That keeps me tethered, because I know that in order to manifest that dream, I'm going to have to be grounded. There's so much that I've tried to manifest in my life that hasn't really worked out, because I haven't actually been like grounded enough to do it. So the universe gives me all these setbacks and things that destabilize me to kind of remind me that if I really want to make this happen, if I really want to like crystallize this dream into reality, it's going to take patience, first of all. And it's going to take this like grounded action and work and commitment, long-term commitment, that I'm not letting go of this dream. As long as it takes, I will make this thing happen. Now, I will be living on land with my family. I will have organic food, fruit and veg growing outside my door. I will have a beautiful natural building to live in. All this stuff that I'm like, I'm not letting go of, even if the universe takes me in a different direction for a while. But there's this, it roots me deep into a better world. And I want to actually live that for myself and my family first. I want to create this way of being and living. Like I know that I need to do that first for me, and then ripple that out into other people and serve others and help others to also get to that place of peace and harmony and connection in themselves. And this, once I've got holding that vision, and it's like, I've got to backtrack, got to backtrack quite a few steps to be like, what are the actual steps? So, looking at different projects that have happened, and like Lamas or these different like eco villages that have actually made it work and have made it happen. It's like, what did they actually do? Well, there's just so many different things to actually start now. It's like defining the plan of the whole thing, designing the village, designing the way that we would operate, like different conflict resolution things, or different values that we're anchoring in, and all this stuff. I can do that. I can start writing things down right now. I can start visioning it in right now. So even though we don't have the land, I can actually take action on this vision today. And I feel like I am consistently like doing certain things, talking to certain people to like bring it more into being. And it's like planning, and it's all this stuff, finances. These are the things that would cause the dream, if it managed to happen without having these things in place, there'd be no roots. It'll be like a tree with no roots. It'll fall over. And we see it all the time. It's like, it wasn't rooted deep enough. So it didn't have the foundations that it needed, and it failed. And I've done that. I've had 3 community projects that I've been part of, which didn't have strong foundations, and they've all collapsed. And that's part of my journey, is to learn from that and not give up.
Yeah. Just to clarify with everybody, when I say grounded, I mean to be able, in the physical body, to be present, to be putting stuff into action. I don't know what you mean by grounded. So what's your definition of being grounded?
I think you put it perfectly there, bro. Yeah. Like in the physical, just feeling a sense of calm and peace. And like, if you think about it scientifically, like when you get your bare feet on the earth, you actually come into synchronization with the earth frequency. So, you could, like, our cells actually start vibrating with the frequency of the earth. That might be a scientific definition.
Yeah, that's nice. I can imagine out there's probably some people who, because this conversation's gotten quite deep, and with regards to people who perhaps aren't on the path yet or have just started, what kind of steps would you recommend that they take?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I think I would probably like want to know what is making them curious. What is making that person, if someone's listening who's just sort of starting out, I'm assuming if they're listening to this podcast and they've got this far, they're curious about spiritual journey or and what it means to live more in harmony with ourselves and others. So I would want to know what's actually that curiosity inside, and how could we just fan that flame? And like we've been talking about, the first step maybe is listening to this podcast. The second step is they probably already know what the second step is. It's maybe just some fear or anxiety holding them back. So this is my experience anyways, like I know what I need to do most of the time. And the more important question is, what's blocking me from taking that step? So I'd want to ask, like, what's blocking you? What's blocking us from stepping more fully into our path? And everybody's path might be different. For some people, it's yoga and meditation. For some people, it's Taoism, or Buddhism, or Tantra, or there's loads of stuff out there. It's like, you can go on Google and it's a gold mine of any practice that you want is on YouTube, like breath work, dance, meditation, sacred sexuality. It's like, you can find anything you want. It's just, I would say to people, actually, the important thing is, don't spread yourself too thin. Like, find a practice that really resonates with you. But for me, it was Kundalini yoga. And that was sort of laid out for me through my mum's path and journey. And it was Kundalini yoga. And that then gave me this practice that I could devote myself to. In Kundalini yoga, there's loads of different meditations and sets of exercises that we do. And each one has a different effect. So I'd often practice a specific set for 40 days at a time, or a specific meditation for 40 days. Or I once actually did 1,000-day meditation as well. 3 years doing one meditation, 31-minute bowing meditation every day for 1,000 days. And it just gave me this, can just keep anchoring back into this thing. I think what sometimes people do when they first start out is we spread ourselves thinly between lots of different practices and paths and religions, or whatever's calling us. It's but then we get bored of it after a while. And then you just want to move on to something that feels a bit more exciting. For me, that just leads to us, the analogy of you digging lots of small holes to try and find water, when really all you need to do is just pick one and dig it straight down, like a deep hole, and you'll find water. You'll find that essence of what you're looking for.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. So on my journey initially started with Reiki. Well, as soon as I did Reiki, it kind of opened me up to everything. And you can get caught up in this kind of idea that I'm going to read this book, I'm going to read this book, or this course, that course. And you're right, you can spread yourself far too thin. And it's the idea that we have the answers within. And rather than looking on the outside, look for the answers inside. And quite often, again, it's the fear, the anxiety, the idea that I'm not good enough or worthy that stops us from stepping forward.
And that's a beautiful way of phrasing it. Anybody just starting out on this spiritual quest, this podcast is quest to find meaning, right? It's anybody starting out to find more meaning in their lives. My suggestion too is just turn inwards. Just keep turning inwards, even if that's 5 minutes a day. Everybody's got 5 minutes, right? You can make as many excuses as you want about how you don't have time, or you've got family, or you got your work, or you got whatever going on. You can always make time for 5 minutes just to sit quietly. Sit quietly, close the eyes. Doesn't have to even be specific form of meditation or anything. Just sit quietly, close the eyes. Maybe you're out in nature next to a tree, and just start to ask yourself that question: what could bring more meaning to my life? And just turn it and just feel what's there. Feel that the answer is probably just going to reveal itself from that space of silence and stillness. It's not going to reveal itself by rushing around, frantically searching through all the scriptures and all the practices to try and find it. Because really what we're searching for is us. We're searching for connection to ourselves.
That leads on quite nicely. What's your definition of a healthy man?
Yeah. So I've done men's work now since I started Kundalini, so 8 years. I've sat in men's circle. I've run men's retreats. I must have done nearly 15 men's retreats now. And every time I'm in that group, every time I'm in a circle of brothers, something very special happens. I don't know if it's some kind of the way our testosterone mirrors one another and activates more testosterone in the group, or just more sense of, I can really just fully be this primal energy and be with this. It does feel primal. It's an ancient thing. Men have done it since probably the dawn of time, where you just sit in circle with fire and nature, and you just feel this. And for me, it's so simple. What is a healthy man? is it's shedding all the things all the conditioning that causes me to be unhealthy, that causes me to be imbalanced. And it's returning back to my natural state of being, which is like a balance of the sage and the warrior. For me, it's like balancing the sage, which is my heart, and it's the part of me that just wants to love unconditionally and be kind and generous and forgiving, and to really like have that part of me, the sage, and also the sage that's very much about meditation or connection to my spirit and connection to the divine, and balancing that with my warrior, which is this like more rooted sense of actually I'm strong, I'm courageous, I am going to hold my boundaries. Something for me recently, a big thing that's come up is I recognize that I forgive quite quickly. I want to move to forgiveness without actually processing the deeper emotion that like the anger or the frustration or grief that's there. And like then the forgiveness becomes shallow and it actually becomes fake. And sometimes it's actually manipulative. I'm like, oh, I forgive you because I want to look like, a beautiful, kind, generous man. And actually it doesn't serve me or anyone else. When I actually can allow myself to feel the deeper emotions or get in touch with my anger and make sure that I'm processing that first, the forgiveness just happens naturally. And I'm talking forgiveness self just as much as for anyone else, So yeah, it's balanced, it's presence, cultivating a deep presence and being able to be present with my wife, with my friends, with my business, with my clients. It's like choosing one thing and devoting myself to it. I run a thing called Devoted Man Quest. So it's very much about just devoting ourselves to one thing for a period of time. Just making this commitment and staying with it for as long as it takes to actually uncover the beauty of it, like the crystal in it all. It's like chipping away at, if you just chip a little bit into the mountain, you're not going to actually get to the diamonds. It's like, it has to, for me, there has to be like a level of commitment that I bring. And I want to uphold that within my business life, but also like in my relationship. My wife is like, when things get hard, when things get really challenging, like I'm not going to give up. I want to move through that to the other side. So that I'm constantly telling myself, and have been through this relationship with my partner, is the grass is greener where you water it. Grass is not greener on the other side. Grass is greener where you water it. I know that if I just accept that it's too hard for me, or that we're not compatible, or we've moved through like various stages in our relationship where we've been quite codependent, or we've been in this trauma bond, or throw whatever psychological language you want onto it. Like we've probably done it. And it's like, I know that if I just give up, I'm probably going to end up in the same cycle with someone else anyway. So for me, it's about taking space when I need to, but also like just continuously bringing myself back to a state of devotion. And that's healthy masculinity for me.
Nice. How would you suggest that men, because obviously there's quite a lot in men, trying to cover all that, it's quite a lot, it's a big question itself. Where can men get started when it comes to starting to embrace their healthy masculine?
Yeah. I mean, find your nearest men's circle and start going. Start talking to other men, start opening up. Be the one that leads the way. If you go to the gym, could you be the first person to start sharing a little bit vulnerably about what's going on for you? We're all going through shit. Like that's obvious. We've all got these challenges. And if you don't, you're probably not actually engaging with the world, or you've bunk on a mountaintop or something. So I would say, be the one that walks first. If you've got friends who are all drinking, and you've realized in yourself that you don't want to drink anymore, like, can you be the one that says, actually, this isn't serving me? Maybe you will be judged. Maybe your friends will be like, oh, stop being such a square. Stop being such a loser. Come and drink with us. We love it. We have a great time together. We love to go out partying and things. And you might be the one that says, actually, that's not for me anymore. Like, I need to find something that's going to fulfill me on a deeper level. Maybe you've recognized that drinking and smoking and anything else is not serving you anymore. And so, yeah, you will then become the one that inspires others. I'm always having people constantly, like, even old friends from school and college, that say, if they're really struggling in their life, like, they might send me a message and be like, I've seen what you've done. It's really inspirational. And I can see that you're happier than you've ever been. Like, can you help me out? Like, I'm struggling with this. So yeah, it's okay to be the first one. And it might be lonely at first, but there's so much out there. There's so many med circles and spaces where you can get that support. And if there isn't any men's circle, then maybe be the first one, like, be the one to start a circle.
Yeah. That takes a lot of courage to start a circle yourself, especially if you don't know what's going on. I've done a lot of men's work. So I've done MKP, the Unmasked Man, and I try to go to men's circle probably once a month. But one thing I have created myself is I'm creating a 6-person mastermind group. So six men, roughly like myself, the idea that we have a big quest that we want to accomplish, and to get together once a month and to work through challenges that we're having, but also to perhaps once every 4 months have a weekend away, where as 6 to 8 men, we can really step into our masculinity, even into our own femininity, and to be able to embrace everything and to allow ourselves to work through what we need to work through and give each other an opportunity to lead.
Yes, sounds amazing. And I like what you said about connection to our feminine energy as well. And by feminine energy, like that more softer, tender, creative part of us, that is key. We were talking earlier about becoming a healthy man. It's like, for me, that's one of the biggest pieces, is have a connection with your inner feminine, the softness, your grief, your tenderness. Yeah.
Definitely. So can you talk a little bit about your sacred space?
Yeah. So what I do is my business is called Inspiro, and it's a multitude of different things. First and foremost, it's a SpaceHolder's training. So it was birthed out of me holding retreats and doing one-to-one sessions with people. And really what I was doing was holding a space of deep listening and allowing that person in the space, or people if it was a group, allowing them to find the answers themselves. So really just holding space for them to drop in, so guide little meditations or embodiment practices, and then open so my role really is just open the sacred space. And by that, I mean, like, we just regulate our nervous systems with some breath or a little bit of toning or mantra or just sighing or some movement, some shaking, and we drop into presence. And then it's holding space, because so often we're going through our life like 1,000 miles an hour. There's no space. And I know that some people, like, wake up, and the minute the alarm goes off, they either snooze it a bit or this, and they wake up and they're immediately into the rush of the day. And then they go through the whole day, like, even like probably, and I do it too. Like, there's times when I'm not holding space for myself and I'm like, I'm scrolling on my phone whilst I'm eating food. And it's like, that's a bit of a non-negotiable for me. I'm like, right, you need to just slow that down. No phone and food. But it's like, or just scrolling endlessly on Facebook, like at 1,000 miles an hour, and there's no breathing space. So what I'm doing when I'm holding space or when I'm teaching others how to hold space is I'm putting like a flag in the ground that says, this is a sacred space where you can be present, where you are invited to drop into your heart and allow yourself to feel the things that you're maybe not feeling in your everyday life. And it's also about, Inspiro is all about putting like authentic connection right at the center of the space. So it's recognizing what holds us back from authentic connection. And when authentic connection is like this ideal that we're moving towards or aspiring to drop into, what holds us back from? Is there like anxiety and emotion thing? And then we work through the emotion to drop into a state of harmony and connection as a group, or if it's working one-to-one, or, as a circle. And I host a lot of circles are really where what I love to do. I love to work with a group of people, and everybody arrives with their own level of anxiety or nerves or like tension in the body. And hopefully by the end of the circle, it's like there's a softening that's taken place and everybody can feel this sense of shared humanity, that we're all walking this path together. We're all trying our best to be happy or find peace or find love. And we can actually come together in support of one another and in a circle where no one's like at the top. I'm not there like on my pedestal saying, we need to do this and that, and I'm the guru and I'm going to teach you all this way of this and that. I'm there in the circle too, and I'm there to be vulnerable myself. And through my own vulnerability, it often allows that space for others to be vulnerable too.
Nice, like it. If, for example, say men want to have a bit more space, or anybody listening to this podcast want to have more space in their life, what kind of things can they start to do?
It comes first through the breath. I think the breath is, I'm sitting here on this podcast right now. I'm like, actually, remember to breathe, remember to take life too seriously. And that is literally creating space inside of the lungs. So you actually you're breathing more deeply. If you breathe into the belly, you're creating space around all the muscles and the ligaments, and all these different areas of the body start to open. And then more air, more oxygen can flow in, regulating the nervous system, allowing us to drop into a state of openness. And then through that state of openness, we can connect with other people more deeply. We can connect with ourselves more deeply. Yeah, I think it starts with the breath, and Inspiro actually means breath of life. So I'm often teaching people how to breathe more deeply. And when we drop into sacred space, we breathe together, and then there's this heart opening that happens. So just to come back to your question, I would really invite people throughout the day, just bring more awareness of your breath. Try and stop whatever you're doing, whether you're on the toilet or you're making some food or you're out in the car and someone's cut you off, and feel that anger rising. Maybe you actually need to scream, and that's beautiful. Scream it out a little bit. Allow yourself to feel the raw emotion, and then return to that breath and really allow the breath to guide you through your day. And make sure you just stop every now and again, take a bit of a check-in to see how your breath is. Is it shallow? Is it deep? Is it fast? Is it slow? And how could you just then consciously allow yourself to breathe a little bit deeper?
Nice. I personally try to do every day is to slow down. But if you are properly breathing, I think you naturally slow down anyway. Yeah, I think breathing is probably one of the easiest, but one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
Definitely. Can you tell us what is it that you do?
Yeah, so I have a few offerings at the moment. The first thing is the SpaceHolder's training. And that is a 12-week online journey all around the art of holding deeply transformational, trauma-aware sacred space. So we cover how to hold circles, how to hold a variety of different circles, like connection circle, singing circle, movement circle, sharing circle, healing circle. We also learn how to hold ritual, how to do shadow work, shadow theater specifically, which is like a practice of embodying the shadow and moving it through the body and learning more about the shadow, which is basically just the parts of us that we've repressed or we feel shame about, or that have been judged, or we've judged these parts of us as wrong or bad. Really, there's a lot of power actually in the shadow. So we learn how to work with the shadow. Yeah, so that's the first one. That's called the Inspiro SpaceHolders path. It's an accredited training. So I've now got it fully certified. So you become a certified space holder at the end of it, which is cool.
Nice.
And the other couple of things is Kundalini yoga teacher training. If anyone wants to learn how to teach Kundalini yoga, or just for your own personal practice of Kundalini yoga and meditation, my mum and I run a Kundalini yoga teacher training. And the final thing is the men's work. If there's guys listening to this podcast, we run a thing called Devoted Man Quest. We're doing day retreats at the moment, working with 7 different masculine archetypes. And that's in Yorkshire. So that's Sowerby Bridge at the moment in Yorkshire. But we're also going to branch out and probably do like a retreat, like a 5-day retreat or something in Wales at some point. So yeah, a lot going on. And we have a WhatsApp group. I've got a WhatsApp group for Inspiro and a WhatsApp group for Devoted Man. So yeah, can definitely pass on the links for that.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, Jote. It's been absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, there's so much in the conversations to cover. In the time period we have, there isn't enough time. Yeah, but thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. Maybe another one soon.
Yeah. Thank you.